All right. Who's this video for? Well, if you've spent any money on advertising and you're a contractor and you got out of there and you're like, hey man, this just didn't work out for me. Whatever, I had a bad experience. It was a marketing agency's fault. You hate marketing, you think it's a bunch of shit. This video is probably for you. But I'm gonna say some stuff that's gonna probably piss you off. Alright, so I'm going to split this video into two sections. There's going to be the first part that's one of the biggest things when it comes to your success with marketing and just business in general, but I'm going to cover it very briefly. I'm assuming that to some degree at least you have your mental side and as far as like what's limiting you mentally from growth out of the picture, and I'm going to spend the majority of this video covering the math side, so we really break down what it is that limits your marketing from a business standpoint, but from more of a like an analytical viewpoint, so that we can really break down the individual levers of your business that you can manipulate to get that better result. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit, but I have this formula that I give every single one of my clients before I even get them signed on to my agency as a client to begin with. It's how I predict not only the investment they're gonna make as far inside of my program, but I can project what the results are gonna be with that system that they're gonna get involved in. And it helps them really deal with both of those variables that essentially determine how successful you're going to be. So we're going to get into this. All right, so the mental side of it. Like I said, it's not what this video is about, but I'm going to touch it very quickly. And as a matter of fact, this part of the mental limitation of marketing and just business growth in general is a little bit different. It's a little bit more analytical. So the biggest problem that I see a lot of business owners have when it comes to marketing, and I deal with this every single day when I talk to contractors, they see this as a cost, and they'll immediately say like, oh, well, I can't afford to pay that, or that's way too much money. You know how much I spend on materials? How can I afford that cost? And they keep framing it as if it's something that they're just gonna have to add to their fixed costs of their business. They completely disregard the fact that there's a return on investment or an ROI built into that cost. So even if you're paying somebody $10,000, what you should really be concerned about is performance and asking that marketer, what are you gonna get me for that $10,000? Because I mean, think about it. Assume this is real. If I came to you and I told you, hey man, if you give me $10,000 in 3 months, I'll turn it into 100,000, why would you say no? I mean, the first thing you're gonna think of is, hey, this is probably a scam, so let me not go ahead and do this. But assuming it's real, if I told you that I can turn your $10,000 into $100,000 every single day, you'd be like, hey, is 10,000 the limit, or can I give you 100,000 turn it into a million? So that's how you have to think about marketing. It's not about how much is this gonna cost me, it's about what can you turn this into? How good is this agency? How good is this freelancer? How good is this system? And what can I expect it to turn into? So that's how I frame every single one of my discussions with contractors. I try to get them away from that cost mentality and thinking of marketing as just something else built into their system that's gonna just take away from their bottom line and turn it into a burning furnace that's increasing and scaling that top line, and then we can deal with the bottom line later. If you're increasing revenue in your business, then there's a huge potential for increasing that bottom line with some additional optimizations that come later on. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about the math behind it and why marketing isn't so upfront cost as most contractors like to look at it, but we'll get into that now. And also the second biggest limiting mental factor that I see with different contractors, and quite frankly, if this is you, marketing just isn't for you. I think that you're in business for a very different reason. You're in business to sustain yourself and provide for your family, which is obviously everybody else's goal, but you're not necessarily a business owner. At the very least, growth isn't your priority. So you need to completely readjust. And to be honest, if that's you, this video is not for you. So that's why marketing didn't work out for you. Growth isn't your number one priority, and that's fine. For everybody, your priorities are different. But definitely you need to reevaluate why it is that you're in business. Be truthful with yourself. And if ultimately growth isn't the number one priority, obviously profitability is the number one priority. But if growth isn't a top priority for you, then just marketing isn't for you. You can completely rely on just word of mouth marketing and referrals from all of your good work. I mean, that's obviously the foundation of all of this, good work. So if you're getting that done, then your marketing system's kind of built into just the work that you're doing. And the only advice I could give you is ask for more referrals, but the rest of this video isn't for you. All right, now for the fun part. the math part, the formula part that you can break down into your business and really analyze which parts of your system you need to optimize. So I have this formula. I'm gonna pop it up here on the screen so you can see it, or probably here inside. But you have to analyze your investment divided by your CPA, or your cost per acquisition, and multiply that by your average job size. That's an extremely fundamental level, the finances and the analytics, the math, the everything behind how you can get marketing to work for you. So I'm going to break down each one of those bullet points, each one of those variables that really determine if marketing is going to work for you, and then we'll see how we can optimize each one, get some more layers into each variable, understand how they manifest in your business and what some of the options are for you in terms of improving them, reducing costs, etc., etc. So the first part of that is investment. So this is just your cost. And I know that earlier I said don't look at marketing as a cost, looking at it as an investment. And that's why I put investment. And I'm going to interchange those words. It's a big mindset thing when it comes to looking at marketing as an investment versus a cost. But for the sake of this, when it comes to math, just look at it as a cost. So in this first part of it, we take your total investment. So if you put $100,000 into your advertising program, this is what your investment is. It's the total amount of money that you've spent on ads, on marketing, on your website, on everything. Your entire marketing cost is the investment part. What changes that is really up to you. How much you decide to invest, the agency that you're working with, what their fees are, how much your website costs, etc., etc. How much money you decide to allocate towards ads. That's totally up to you. It's extremely variable. It can increase from month to month. Most companies operate on that quarterly system, so your marketing budget can change quarter to quarter depending if you had a good quarter or a bad quarter, projections. It's infinite what determines your investment cost. That's completely up to you, so I'm going to skip that part of it. Then we have the CPA, so we have the cost per acquisition part of it. What does that mean? It means how much money does it cost you to get a client, to get a new job. Not how much per lead, that's very different, because not every lead turns into a job. So how much does it actually cost you to get a new job from your marketing? There's three things that really determine how we can improve this, how we can manipulate this variable inside of your business to get better results from your marketing. And not all of it actually has to do with the marketing or the agency or whatever, the performance of the marketing campaigns that you're doing. There's a part of it that actually has to do with your business. And that's why I said that sometimes we blame these marketing agencies, and sometimes contractors like to just throw blame and say like, hey man, marketing didn't work for me. But it's but most often it has something to do with the systems in your business and not the marketing that was done. So what are those three things that we can do to really increase that CPA? So the first thing that we can do is get a better website. So if we're doing digital marketing, then increasing the performance of your website, how often it turns somebody from a visitor into a lead, means that every single lead costs you less money. If each lead costs you less money, then it's just a math game. If it takes 10 leads to get one job, if each lead costs less, it costs less to get that client. So that's the first way. The second way is just a better ad strategy. So it can be your agency or your marketing guy's fault, but not necessarily fault. It's just something that can be optimized over time, and usually you should expect this to improve. Your performance should always be getting better. You should always be testing new strategies, new copywriting, new creatives that bring down that cost per lead, that CPL. If we can bring that CPL down, then we can bring down the cost per acquisition. And the third thing, and this is one of the hardest things to actually implement, and that why a lot of contractors have a hard time dealing with this, is just better closers. You have to have better systems in your business to close people from leads into work. How you do that doesn't really matter. There's tons of different ways, whether you decide to opt for just complete systems automation where you have emails go out to everybody, you have a CRM that does that. As soon as somebody submits a lead on your website, they receive confirmation over the phone, over text, over email, whatever it is. That experience that customers deal with as soon as they submit a request for a lead has a big part in determining how likely they are to turn into a customer, but also just how good your sales guys are, or how good your offer is, how good you are at estimating jobs fairly. It plays a big part in what your closing rate's gonna be, and that closing rate's ultimately gonna determine what your CPA is, because one way to look at CPA is if it takes 10 leads to turn into a job, then how much is each lead? I can calculate my CPA like that. But another way to look at it is if I can get the number of leads it takes to turn into a job down from 10 to 5, then you just split your CPA in half. It costs half the amount of money to turn a lead into a job than it did before. Obviously, the other side to that is better ads can also increase the lead quality, which also leads to higher closing rates. So there's a lot of different variables here and a lot of people that are responsible for these things. But that CPA is a huge part of determining how successful your advertising campaign is going to be. Now, that second part of it is the average job size. This is, I mean, every business book covers this: how to get more money out of each client, how to raise your prices, how to offer better service, the service funnel, just everything. How you do this can be like the optimizations for this are infinite. Whether you decide to just increase your prices, offer different services. For example, if you're a painter and obviously your main service is just an interior or exterior repaint, but if you can somehow upsell them to some kind of maintenance program afterwards, especially if it's commercial, if you can get them on some kind of monthly contract where you come every single month and do some pressure cleaning, stuff like that, that just raised your average customer lifetime value, which is a little bit more complicated than your average client size. Average client size or your average job size, I'm kind of just accounting for a one-time experience between the company and the customer. So basically you just come in, you do a job and you never see them again. That's how you determine that. But basically your goal here is just to get more money out of the customer. How you do this, I can make 10,000 videos about, but just get more money from the customer. This formula is literally what determines how successful your marketing is. It's super simple. You can take a second, write it down, analyze your business, look at, okay, what is happening in my business and where could the potential faults be? And that probably has a big part to play with why your marketing campaigns weren't successful or why they're not as successful as you want them to be. Now, if you're looking for one of those parts is obviously having a solid marketing team behind you. So if you're looking for a system that really prioritizes high quality leads over low quality leads, then that's what we specialize in here at One Take Marketing. So we don't go for high volume. We don't care about just getting every single person that we can get in. We've built a 3-part system called the Lead Enrichment Program, where we specifically focus the high income areas in your city or town or wherever it is that you do business, and we focus them. And then we have landing pages built specifically for converting at a higher rate, which, like we mentioned in that formula, is the CPA part. If we can increase the performance of our website, we bring down that CPA. And finally, we have a structured and a pre-tested Google Ads strategy that I've tested over millions of dollars worth of ad spend that reduces that learning period so we can get those results as quickly as possible. So if you're interested in that, I'm gonna go ahead and leave my information down below and you can always reach out to me. But besides that, no matter who it is that you're working with, this formula, sit down, analyze it. If you can manage to manipulate any of these variables, I guarantee that you're gonna have success with marketing.